I want to be more intimate with you, Lord.
At age 13, I think I just became a target towards an older boy in church, and he ended up sexually molesting me. I thought that people would see that, here I was an innocent victim, but instead I was blamed. I did embrace an identity as a gay man, and I lived that way for 11 years. You've sinned too much. You've done too much. He's not going to forgive you. And as soon as that voice finished speaking, another voice said to me, but if you ask him, he will.
Welcome to Pure Passion. My name is Jonathan Daugherty. What does a boy do when he starts developing homosexual confusion while growing up in a strong, vibrant Pentecostal church? And as if that isn't dilemma enough, throw in the fact that your father is a pastor but doesn't live at home. And worse still, you're molested from the age of 13 to 17 by someone in the church. What good could possibly come from all that? Let's find out.
I was born in a small town in Texas, and I was raised in a very strict Pentecostal upbringing. And I think that shaped how my life, early stages of my life began, and some of the decisions that I make, even my character and personality. Being a part of a Pentecostal holiness church shapes your worldview, how you view yourself, how you view God. My father and my grandfather were both pastors and preachers, and it was expected that all of us children would be part of the church in some way, shape, or fashion. And I love church. I love going to church. I love being the Pentecostal that I was. We did what was called shouting and dancing. It was very exciting being at church. But inside, I had this growing feeling of being different, and I didn't know quite how to describe it to anyone. I didn't know how to even articulate it to myself. But I knew that it was different somehow than, say, other boys my age. I never said anything to anyone about this because in my church, there was this belief and teaching that people who were homosexual would go to hell. Of course, I had not identified myself as a homosexual, but again, there was something different about me in that I had this strange, perhaps, attraction to other boys that, again, I didn't understand. So I didn't call myself a homosexual. But as I began to grow, even in early school age, there was an incident on the playground once where I was chasing a friend, and normal play, what kids do, we chase each other around and we have a lot of fun. But when I caught him, this particular moment, this instant, I felt something towards him as I held him. And it sort of scared me. It sort of made me feel good. It was strange. And I think at that time, at age 11, I began to sort of put pieces together here and there about perhaps who I was or what I was feeling. And that just sort of developed on its own because I don't think I had any intervention other than that basic church teaching that if you are a certain way, you will go to hell. And I never wanted to go to hell. I didn't want to feel the way that I felt. And intrinsically, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't quite know what to do about it. And I grew up in a fairly large family with 5 other brothers and 3 sisters. Like a lot of African-American youth, I grew up in a single-parent home where my father was absent. My mother was the breadwinner. She was the provider. She was everything to us, all of us children. And I think that in my heart, I held a lot of hostility towards my father because I didn't know where he was. I didn't know why he wasn't there for me. When in school, I was called different names as people do sometimes when you're different. You know, I was called sissy. I was called a girl sometimes, and I was excluded from playing with other boys because I guess they sensed that it was something different about me as opposed to them. And I ended up actually playing with girls most of the time, something I didn't want to do, but it was, yeah, in a sense, forced on me. And I always wondered, where was my father when I was hurting in my heart and when I felt isolated? Where was he? Why didn't he comfort me? Why didn't he tell me that I wasn't who people said that I was? I was his son. And this feeling in my heart developed where I just wanted a man to say that he loved me, that he affirmed me, that I was worthy to him. And that never happened. And so all of these sort of factors began to come together where at age 13, I think I just became a target towards an older boy in church, and he ended up sexually molesting me, and that went on for several years. During that time, this crisis developed with my identity. You know, was I homosexual? Was I not? And I really didn't know where to go with that. And so again, I never really told anyone. This molestation carried on for about 4 years until finally, when I was 17 years old, I had had enough of it. This was a love-hate relationship. I hated the fact that he touched me, but there came a point to where I almost wanted him to do it. And it was very, very conflicting to me because, again, in my heart, I knew it wasn't right. It couldn't be right. This wasn't something that God was pleased with. I went to church a lot. I wanted to get rid of this before anybody found out. And I would go to church all the time. I would fast. I would pray. I would go to the altar. I did almost everything I knew to do that people in church said would, you know, make you right with God. And it never happened for me. I would go to revival meetings and I would really hope that somebody would come, somebody I didn't know, and just say something to me like, God is going to heal you, or God is going to make you right. And it was like a fantasy in my mind that I would get rid of this feeling, and that kept growing, but it didn't happen. The fact that I was molested brought about several questions in my mind. Why me? What did he see in me to make him want to do this to me? I often wondered, why didn't other people see something and intervene? I did wonder if I was homosexual, and is this something he saw and he just knew it, but I didn't know it? A lot of questions about my identity came up because of this molestation. You know, and I never say that molestation in and of itself caused me to be gay, but it certainly did color how I viewed life, and certainly how I viewed my own sexuality. And I began to view it through a broken lens, so to speak. And I just, I felt extremely conflicted so many times. There were so many pieces of a puzzle that I couldn't put together. I couldn't bring it together to understand, why was I in this? What did I do to deserve to feel like this, or to be this way, or, you know, and why hadn't God heard my cries? Why didn't God come and deliver me? Like they always told me in church that God was a deliverer. That's what I heard. I heard he could deliver you from anything. But here I was in the midst of all of this Pentecostal holiness, spirit-led, all of this, but it seemed like I was all alone and no one knew except my molester that I was in this hell. And it was not a good time for me.
Did you know that people with sexual problems often have more than one? For example, many sex addicts are sex abuse victims, while many homosexuals also struggle with porn and masturbation. For that very reason, David Kyle Foster has written a book that addresses every major area of sexual sin and brokenness. It's called Sexual Healing, a biblical guide to finding freedom from sexual sin and brokenness. To get the complete picture on freedom from sexual sin and bondage, pick up your copy of Sexual Healing at purepassion.us. Pure Passion is now more than 5 years old, and we wanted to thank you for all that you've done to help make it happen. We're now seen through the entire populated world, on 12 networks, in 8 languages, on 9 websites, 3 social networks, and 2 smartphone apps. God is transforming lives through the witness you've enabled us to proclaim, that Jesus Christ can set anyone free from anything. People who've never heard that God can conquer sexual sin and brokenness are finding freedom, and the church is finally getting equipped in this vital area. Thank you from Pure Passion.
At age 17, I decided that I would end this molestation issue once and for all. And the individual had written me a letter, and I took the letter to the leaders of my church. And I thought that people would see that, here I was an innocent victim, but instead I was blamed. I was told that it's because of you that this happened. And it tore me to pieces spiritually. It shredded all hope that I had of resolving the conflicts in my heart, because I went to people who I thought would help me, but they didn't. And so I decided that I would no longer try to be what I thought God wanted me to be. I decided that I would be a homosexual, and that I didn't care what anybody thought, because I had asked for help. I had been a victim. No one came to my rescue, not even God. He never heard my prayers. And so I decided that I didn't care anymore about trying to be something that perhaps people felt was normal. So I decided I would be a homosexual. And when I graduated from high school, I left church. I left everything that I felt that I had grown up with. I left it behind. I didn't care about what the Bible said. I didn't care about what God said. I didn't care about what people said about me anymore, because I just felt like it was useless. And I had tried, and that there was no help. So now I could live my life the way I wanted to live it. At age 19, I moved away from home to attend college. And it was during that time that I began to experiment more and more to find other gay people. I didn't really know anything about gay people, because I grew up in a very, very small town in Texas. And there were no obvious gay people in my town that I knew of, so there was really nobody to connect with. But when I moved to a larger city, I noticed people. I was still sort of afraid to approach them. I didn't know what to say to them, so I just kind of waited for someone to say something to me. And one night I was out walking, and a young man approached me, and he told me that he was going to a party, and he asked me if I wanted to go to this party with him. And I could tell by the look in his eyes it was something different going on. And it kind of excited me because I wanted to find out what this party was all about. And so this young man took me to a gay club for the first time that I went. And it was absolutely exhilarating to me. It felt like for the first time I was with people who understood me, who were like me. I didn't feel anyone was judging me. I felt like this was what life was about. Just be happy, just dance, just enjoy the music, and be who you are. And instantly, all of my defenses came down when I was in this gay club. It was like I was always meant to be in this place. And I think from there, it just began. I began this process of assimilation into gay culture, gay life, being a gay man, and embracing that identity for myself. And I want to sort of add a caveat that I never believed that I was born gay. that was never a concept in my mind. It was just something that I guess logically to me didn't make sense, and so I never adopted that belief. But I did embrace an identity as a gay man, and I lived that way for 11 years. For the 11 years that I was in homosexuality, or we like to call it the lifestyle, from what I saw, homosexuality or the gay life, gay culture was about finding a sex partner and satisfying yourself. It was about having fun. It was about throwing away any kind of conventional restrictions that prevented you from having the fun that you wanted. It was complete freedom from my eyes. That's what it was. Homosexuality is a double-sided coin, I think, for a lot of people. And for me, it presented the best of both worlds. Even with numerous sexual partners, even with the freedom that I felt, I began to do things that I thought I would never do. That never entered into my mind, my imagination to do. When I was in that context, I felt like I would do whatever I felt like doing and nobody could stop me. But when the lights went down, when the party was over, when the sex stopped, there was still this terribly empty loneliness in my heart that the clubs could not satisfy, sexual partners could not satisfy, the freedom that I felt, it couldn't satisfy that. And I kind of felt like many times I was chasing a ghost. I participated in orgies, and I went to public sex places, and just many degrading things that, of course, I'm very ashamed of now. But that was the life that I saw, that I participated, and to tell you the truth, that everyone else around me participated in the same thing. There was no difference. The sense of fidelity and commitment within a relationship, a sexual relationship in the gay community, is vastly different than what heterosexuals understand it to be. Not only did I participate in sexual activities with people who said they were in committed relationships, I actively pursued them because I felt like there were no restrictions. No one that I ever encountered said, hey, I am partnering with this person and I do not want to step outside of that. Willing sex partners, whether so-called committed or not, were just as free as those who were not in any kind of relationship. And so what I hear now about, as the gay community tries to paint itself as this very traditional sense of morality and traditional sense of commitment and relationship, it is a polar opposite to what I experienced personally while I was in homosexuality.
Have you gotten our special DVD on homosexual confusion yet? It contains almost an hour of testimony and teaching by David Kyle Foster on how homosexuality develops and how God brings healing. Pick up a copy of David's complete teaching on DVD for yourself or a loved one from our online store. Just look for the DVD entitled Homosexual Confusion, Understood and Healed. Available now at www.purepassion.us. Did you know that there's more to our interview with Frank Worthen than we were able to include in last week's program? A lot more. So we've decided to make the entire hour-long interview available on DVD. Find out more about Frank's life as a homosexual in San Francisco and how he met his wife, Anita. This DVD also includes much more detail about the early years of Exodus International, including Frank's take on the return of one of its founders to the gay lifestyle. To get the complete interview on DVD, just go to purepassion.us.
That last year that I was in the lifestyle, a great change began in my heart, and I began thinking those feelings of worthlessness turned into suicidal thoughts. And I always felt like this. There were a lot of people I felt that had hurt me in my life, people who were not there for me. And I felt the same way about God. I hated God. I felt that he had betrayed me, that he had left me to be brutalized, that he would not hear my prayers. And I felt like he was just somebody who didn't care about me. Of all the people in the world I thought should care, I would think God would care about me. But my experience with him said to me that he doesn't care. And so when I began seeing my life as very worthless and hopeless, I got to thinking, well, maybe you should just check out of here. Maybe this is it for you. And I really felt that I would just, if I was going to hell, that I would die a homosexual and I would go to hell, and I didn't care anymore. You know, maybe it was better than the struggle of my life, which was this exhilarating high when I was clubbing and partying and sexing, and then this very deep low when I felt lonely and alone and rejected. And those were the sort of two extremes of my life. And also what I decided to do is I was going to write a letter, and I was going to list everyone's name who had ever hurt me and had abandoned me. And I was going to say in the letter, you are the reason that I killed myself, because I wanted to hurt them one last time before I left this earth. I wanted them to know what I felt they had done to me. And perhaps I blamed them for what my life had become. And I sat down in the chair in front of my television. And I guess by habit, I don't know, I just turned the television on and I began to watch it. And it was an amazing scene on the television. It was a story being played out, and I saw in the distance a man, and he was carrying something. He was dragging something. I also saw the faces of the people. They were screaming at him. They were throwing things at him. They were reaching for him like as if they wanted to just kill him. And I could not, for the life of me, understand what had this man done for these people to hate him so much. And one of the things I saw in this movie that shocked me was I saw my own face in the crowd. And when I saw that, I was shocked to my core that I was there hating this man who was moving towards me. And then at a certain point, he got up to the, I guess what would be the front of the television screen, but it was almost like a 3D movie. Everything froze except him. And his face came out of the television at me, and he said to me, I did all of this just for you. And when I heard that, tears leapt into my eyes because I wanted to die. And I didn't think anybody heard me or saw me. And I could not believe that he would say to me that he endured this for me, that he took this pain, this, what these people were doing to him, he did it for me. And at that time, I realized that it was Jesus. And a voice said to me, you've done too much and God is not going to forgive you. You've sinned too much. You've done too much. He's not going to forgive you. And as soon as that voice finished speaking, another voice said to me, but if you ask him, he will. And I was conflicted about what should I do. Should I ask God to forgive me? Because I knew that I had lived a life that was terrible. I hated God in my heart. I didn't want any part of him. I had rejected everything I knew about him. But here he is offering me an opportunity to come to him. And so I decided that I would ask God to forgive me. And I decided I would stand up and I would get on my knees because I really didn't know what to say. I was afraid that I would pray and then God would say, no, I don't want to hear you because you had your chance and you didn't take it. But when I stood up to get on my knees, I literally fell on my face on the floor. And I was in a little gray trailer that I lived in, the same trailer that men, sexual partners had come in and out of. The same place. I fell on my face before God, and I began to ask him, how could you love me knowing all that I've done? It befuddled me, because my conception of love was I had to do something for him to love me. And here he was saying, I love you regardless of what you've done. And I wasn't convinced of that. There was some situations that I had gotten myself involved in when I was in Germany, and it was very degrading type of stuff. And I began to tell him, I said, don't you remember when I did this? And he stopped me when I was telling, he said to me, but I love you. And some way I became convinced that God loved me, even though I had done all of these things, that I had went so far out that perhaps no one could reach me. And I decided that day that I wanted to be in relationship with him no matter what. And I took him up on his offer. I asked him that day to forgive me. I don't know how long that I laid on my face, but when I got up, I was a new man. I was a new creation. All the old things had passed away, and my life had become new on that day. And it began this process, the journey that I love so much that I'm on today. I didn't know what to expect. All I knew was I wanted him more than life itself. He said to me, Foster, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. I'll be with you always, even unto the end of this world. And I have held on to that as my rock, the words that keep me and have propelled me forward. So it was beyond my wildest expectations what God did for me on that day.
If you or a loved one struggles with homosexual confusion and live in the Atlanta area, why not contact Daryl Foster? God has raised him up to be a witness to the miracle that Jesus Christ can do in someone's life. There are also ministries around the world that have been raised up for the same reason. The largest network of such ministries in the U.S. is called Exodus International, or outside the U.S., Exodus Global Alliance. Many of these ministries offer counseling, ministry, help for parents and spouses, support groups, and some even hold conferences where you can learn more about how God can transform the life of someone bound by homosexual confusion. Our ministry website is brimming with videos, audio files, and articles on sexual brokenness of all kinds, as well as an online store and recommendations for places to find further help. Visit our Facebook page and download our free iPhone and Droid apps, where you can watch Pure Passion anytime. The fact is, you don't have to remain bound up and driven by homosexual lust. God has a way of escape. So if that is your struggle, contact one of these ministries for further information. And come visit us again next week here on Pure Passion.